Angie said that she was surprised when she got off the plane and met with the team that the Dance Pop Revolution would be a competition show and not a Making the Band style reality show. Two sources close to production who spoke to Rolling Stone said that they do confirm that Dance Pop Revolution, Jojo Siwa's show, was being sold as a kinder, gentler version of Dance Moms. Quote, with what Jess and Jojo went through on Dance Moms, we thought they wouldn't want to do anything that would make the child feel a certain way or paint them in a certain light, which they did exactly that. But there were tensions within the cast and between the Siwas and some of the cast members almost immediately. Those two sources close to production say that this was due to the inherent premise of the show, which involved children being pitted against each other in a competitive setting. Two of the contestants were frequently compared to each other by Jesslyn because they both had blonde hair, prompting one of them to dye their hair mid-season. Two sources close to production also alleged that in a deleted elimination sequence, the girls who were cut from the show would be asked by producers to look in the mirror and watch themselves become visibly upset during their exit interviews. So these girls would not only be fired from the competition show, their dreams are shattered, but they had to sit in the mirror afterwards and try to make themselves cry so they can get some good B-roll of these girls being upset. According to one of the sources close to production, they said it was not a good day unless you made a kid cry. Angie Sanderson confirmed that she had heard such comment from a producer as well. So essentially, if they had a kid crying, if they had some drama, then they were, having a good shoot day because they wanted to have those moments and to put these young kids through that stress. Jojo's mom was also allegedly verbally abusive during rehearsals, with one time Jesslyn berated a contestant with hypotonia, which is a disorder that causes low muscle tone. Jesslyn decided to mock her for being unable to move her arms and legs. She also allegedly made fun of her speech and at one point was mocking her. Of course, none of these scenes had aired, but all 3 or 4 sources they had spoken to all confirmed this happened. So who is Jojo's mom to be sitting here making these girls feel like absolute crap about themselves? I mean, I met her last night and I didn't think she seemed that mean, so it's kind of sad to think that she has that in her to really go so hard on kids that aren't even hers. I mean, I would feel uncomfortable as an adult speaking to another person's child like that. Things got significantly worse once production for the show ended in September 2021, and the winners, including Leah, had transitioned to being a full-time music act. Leah and her mother allege, and another source close to production confirms, they largely had to pay out of pocket for food and transportation, often without being reimbursed. They were not paid for individual music video, photo, or social media content shoots. According to Angie, a copy of the recording contract provided to Rolling Stone said that the girls were promised $10,000 upon recording their first album. Yet Angie claims they only received little more than $4,000 because she had to pay for an Airbnb where they would stay. Although the Siwas rented a house in San Fernando Valley in 2022 that would become known as the XOMG Pop House, which was furnished with brightly colored walls and a claw grab machine, the kids did not sleep there or stay there. Actually, Angie claims after they would leave the house, the Airbnb that they had rented that would serve as their content creation house, they would then go and sleep on blow-up mattresses on the floor of Kinsley's dance studio, so they had nowhere to go. Here's a clip of one of the group members showing a little bit of this content creation house that Angie is speaking of.
Next, we got this cute little XOMG Pop sign, so cute. We also got each of our names on here. We got Tiny, we got Kinley, Dallas, Brooklyn, Leah, and then Bella, which is me.
Because of the situation that Angie and Leah were in, this was a dire financial situation, and they had to shut down their daycare in order to live in California. They feared that if they said anything to any of the producers or people in charge, that they would be sued or would be caught up for breaching their contract. Two sources close to production of the Dance Pop Revolution alleged that the mothers were threatened on multiple occasions with lawsuits. The fact that one member, Kaya, had already been abruptly fired in fall of 2022 further solidified that no one standing within XOMG Pop was guaranteed. So really, if you pissed anyone off, You're fired and they will replace you, and they have no problem doing it. Angie said, you have to understand the atmosphere. You're not allowed to say anything. You can't question anything. You're living in fear that you're going to cost your child their opportunity, or that they'll get fired, or that you're going to have to get a lawyer, and none of us had the money. Angie claims that at one point she and Bella's mother started working directly for Jess, Jojo's mother, organizing Jojo's closets and scrubbing toilets in her home for $20 an hour. And she was actually able to prove this by providing receipts of PayPal transactions where they were being paid to scrub Jojo's toilets and then going back to their blow-up mattresses. Additionally, rehearsals would last hours with little time available for school. According to a calendar shared with Rolling Stone, shoots for music videos like Disco Believer could extend up to 9 hours, with rehearsal call times sometimes being sent to the girls well after midnight the night before. Leah says that we would end up working a 9-hour day with no school. And that doesn't comply with the California child labor laws, which Jojo should be very familiar with, that you have to, continue school, have some education, and have time that is set off so you can go and learn and have these breaks and be a normal child. But Jojo and her mother didn't want normal children. They wanted to really push them to their limits and get the bang out from their buck. Jojo had that $200,000 that she had, invested, and she wants it back unless these girls can prove themselves. After the reality show had ended, the girls were still expected to do a lot of work. Endless hours of making Snapchat, TikTok videos, and YouTube content. There was no direct compensation for that labor. But supposedly the girls were given a little incentive that they would get $500 if they had made the most popular TikTok that week. So again, creating competition between these girls who are supposed to be a united group front, like a core band. And it really seems like Jojo can't get that in her mind, that you want them all to get along, not for all of them to fight against each other. Leah said that she enjoyed making the videos at first, but they quickly took on a more cutthroat bent. Everyone was pitted against each other the entire time. She says there was still a divide. During rehearsals, Leah claims that Jojo would often encourage the girls to compare themselves to each other, breeding an atmosphere of constant contention and presenting a stark contrast to her sunny public persona. She said, we're supposed to be a group and supposed to be unified. That's what I'm saying. It was like the show all over again. Supposedly they performed at the Mall of America in Minnesota, and Jojo was shouting at them through their headsets, screaming, you're sucking, bring it up, the energy is low, you look sloppy, this isn't good enough. She said we had thousands of people watching this, and then we had somebody in our ear screaming at us, telling us we suck. A source close to the situation also confirmed that this did in fact happen.
Very nerve-wracking. We were all so nervous. Like, one girl actually puked backstage, like right before we went on. And
the nerves were high.
The nerves were so bad because we didn't know how this was going to go because of the night before, and we knew that we were giving it our absolute all. And so, but it wasn't good enough.
No.
And so we go on stage, and we have these little in-ears. I've talked about it before. And we hear a voice in the middle of our performance saying, you guys, the energy is low. Y'all are sucking. Come on, guys. What are y'all doing? Like, all of these things. She's like, it's sloppy. And we're trying to sing to, like, how many thousands of people that are at the Mall of America. Our moms are like, y'all did so good. Y'all did so good. Like, it was really good. And then Jess text Jojo and ask her, how was it? And you want to know what she said?
Sloppy.
She said it was sloppy.
Even though the conditions were really bad, Angie and Leah felt desperate to be in this situation. Until Jess, Jojo Siwa's mom, couldn't handle Angie anymore. She actually texted her, Angie, I'm really tired of it. I work really hard. I've gone over and above for you and your kid. There's food at the house. They're not overworked. If you're going to work for me, you cannot act like an asshole. End of story. Angie repeatedly pled for Leah to stay in the group. Please, Jess, my daughter will hate me forever. She even offered to assign an on-set guardianship, a requirement for minors in California, to her older daughter or to one of the other mothers so Leah could stay in the group. Angie was so shaken up. She's like, okay, well, if you don't want me around, Jess, I could go away and I'll, give a guardian to my daughter to be here. And so she can continue working, because she did not want her daughter to resent her for, raising her voice, causing a fuss, and then getting them kicked out.
The thing is, we were just very, nervous about Leah being let go because of her disability, and because she'd been in the hospital in LA. She'd had a lot of issues that fall and winter before the surgery, and so we were very nervous about her getting fired for that reason, and so we just did whatever they asked.
Yeah.
Angie said, I blamed myself because I felt like I was taking something away from Leah. But unfortunately, Angie couldn't say anything to keep Leah in. Well, I guess unfortunately, but fortunately. And Jess, Jojo's mother, fired her through text message on May 6, 2023. She said, we have decided we will not be continuing to invest in Leah, and she is released from the group effective immediately. She was let go from the group, but they noticed that Leah's image was still being used. I mean, on merchandise and promos. So they actually sent a letter to the girl group and said, hey, you fired us, you let us go. Why are you still using like my daughter's image to sell your brand? Angie noticed that her daughter's image was still being used in merchandise for branded hairbrushes and costumes. So they sent a letter on December 6, months and months after she was let go, accusing them of using her image without authorization. A merchandising contract provided to Rolling Stone signed in June 2021 entitles the 7 members of XOMG Pop to 20% of the merchandising revenue, which is about 2.8% per member, which is actually shockingly low. I mean, I'm not surprised because Jojo Siwa seems to be pretty cheap, but like very, very low, that they could not live off of this and maintain a working lifestyle and living in LA.
And then it talks here about the per diem at $35 a day, which is nothing. But we generally, when we went out of town, did get the per diem, the $35 a day, $35 for the girl, $35 for the mom, which still was not enough money to when you were traveling and stuff like that. And especially when I was using my own money to, $30 is one merch bag. And that's if it's not overweight. There was one time I did get reimbursed for carrying the merch luggage, but the rest of the time I did not, even though I submitted receipts. So this didn't even cover me carrying the merch luggage. They should have gotten $10,000 advances per girl. This is strictly for merchandise. Leah's owed $20,000 just in merchandise advances that were never paid to her, and so were all the other children.
As for Leah, she says she still harbors resentment towards the Sias, whom she spent 2 years of her life with. Leah claims that she hasn't spoken to the Siwas ever since her mother got that text message from Jess saying that she was fired, and honestly, good for her for telling her story.